Let me see if I can plug in the mic. All right, hopefully the microphone helps out with some of the wind noise. But good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Walks in Wall Street. We'll go ahead and get started here in just a moment. But first, as always, we'll just do a quick audio and visual check. If you guys can hear us and if we're streaming in 1080p, just give us a thumbs up in the chat. Also, before I forget, if you rewind or just click refresh on your web browser, the DVR should work. So if you could hear us, if you could see us in 1080p, and if you could rewind the stream, leave a thumbs up in the chat, and we'll get started here momentarily. Thank you all for joining us on this late night stream. Thanks so much. All right, I think we're good. Let's go ahead and get started here. So good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Walks and Wall Street. Today is Tuesday, May 7th, 2024. It's about 9:55 p.m. Whoa, it's late. It's really late. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to do the stream. You got to still stick it out, right? Now, I went to a really, really nice charity event in the city with the team. If you guys want to know what the charity is called, it's called the Promise Project. So the event was the Beautiful Promise 2024, and essentially the charity is all about helping provide, families who potentially have kids that are learning disabled, if you have dyslexia or something like that, ADD, ADHD, providing them with the necessary funds to get their kids tested. Right, because a lot of these, tests could cost a lot of money. It could be like $10,000 or more for these different, types of tests. So this is a really good charitable organization. It's called the Promise Project, and it essentially provides those less fortunate families with the funds to, get their kids checked out so they can get the help they need with their learning disabilities. So I think it was pretty cool. It was an awesome event. It was on 18th Street. And my boss, Kirsten Jordan, was doing a lot of the auctions, so it was good to meet a lot of people, lots of big names in the city. And if you want to check it out, it should be on News Channel 7 tonight at 11. So if you're interested in any charitable donations, check out the Promise Project. It is a pretty good organization. Anyway, moving on to the markets, S&P 500, NASDAQ, and the Dow pretty much across the board closed green, but everything really closed mid-range. So if you look at the SPX, pretty volatile day. Now we gapped open, we rallied to the highs of the day, we went all the way back to the lows, and then we closed about mid-range. That seems to be the story across the board. Now, as we've already reviewed, pretty much all of the major catalysts for the market in terms of notable earnings, in terms of new expectations for monetary policy, are pretty much in the rearview mirror. Last week, we heard from Fed Chair Jerome Powell at the FOMC meeting. No change in the Fed funds rate, still 5.25% to 5.5%. There are going to be some changes with the pace of assets rolling off the balance sheet, which we talked about. I think there's a guy having an episode just to the left of me. All right, let's close up. I'll say hello to everybody in the chat, and we'll just get away from this guy. Thanks for joining. All right, and it's finally warm, thank God. Wow, beautiful day in the city today. It was like, I think it was almost 80 degrees, which was great. Hey, New England Crypto, Alan, A-Doll is here, Shell, thanks for joining us. Natty, welcome, welcome. Alan, Perfect 228, Sabina, Gary Carpenter, Dario, Tone Rick, Solo 401, Emil Carr, good to see everybody, Tatted T, Joseph Hardaway. All right, let's go ahead and head down. Now, I believe the New York Rangers are still playing. The last I checked, they were tied 2-2. But this was probably about maybe an hour ago, I feel. I was watching a little bit of it in Penn Station. So we'll head down to Madison Square Garden because that's where we need to go anyway. And perhaps we'll catch a little bit of the Rangers game getting out. Fingers crossed the Rangers will win tonight. But again, the last I checked, it was about 2-2. It was all tied up. Solo 401, what's going on? Oh, you're going to be here in 2 days. Well, fingers crossed that the weather will be fantastic. Oh, wow. Vinny says it's now tied 3-3. Andrew says overtime and tied 3-3. All right, so let's head down. I think that's going to be pretty cool. I feel as if a lot of the New York sports have been very exciting as of late. Would you guys say that? I'm not sure if anybody saw the Knicks game last night, but pretty exciting. Now again, I'm not a big sports guy. However, anytime New York sports teams are in it, I'll pay attention. You know, I'll try to get in the mix of all the action. Crypto Meme, what's going on? Thanks for joining us. Doc7 says, Tom, when will you premiere your second channel? I should have probably done it already. Really no excuse for it. It's just been a little bit busy, but again, that's no excuse. If I really wanted to make it happen, I could. Let's shoot for June 1. Because I have a lot of things to do. Very, very busy. I got to go back to Florida, change out a tenant, working on a pretty big deal down there. And but you know what? It's never going to be the right time to do anything. I just got to start. I just got to do it. I just have to do it. I got to find time, because essentially what I want to do is have a series, right? Kind of like a behind the desk series that will complement the newsletter. Let's just wait for the FDNY to go by. Hopefully everybody's all right. It's the Tiffany building. But essentially, if many of you probably read the newsletter or Behind the Street newsletter, it's essentially like a comprehensive investing piece where we talk more specifically about the broader economy. Sometimes we hammer down into a sector focused and an individual stock view. I think it would be cool to have a video component where you could see behind the desk. You know, let's say if we're modeling a specific stock, you could see how we do that. And I want to make them about 15-minute short segments. Maybe we'll publish every other day. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Hopefully, we'll get that up and running. Hey, Mary's here. It's this big storm where I am. I think lightning just hit a place north of me. Well, stay inside. It seems like we've been having a lot of interesting weather events across the country. So, hey, Dario, welcome. Good to see you. We'll check out if Trump is here. Let's see. Doesn't look like it. Usually they'll have more concise barricades up. But wow, was the city, I mean, today the city really felt alive. For the first time in a long time, probably because it was beautiful out. It seemed like everybody was in the office. I always say this, but pre-pandemic, whatever you want to call it, 2019, in the city, right, in the summer in New York City, 5th Avenue, 6th Avenue, Madison, right, Lexington, totally packed. I'm talking like crazy packed during the work week, specifically at lunch, right? Everybody, you know, getting lunch, grabbing a cup of coffee with your coworkers. Ever since the pandemic, it never really felt like it returned 100%. This is probably the second day where I kind of felt like, wow, it seems like everybody is now back in the office. Now, I don't know if that trend is going to continue. I think it will. It's very dependent on the weather. Let's just say that. I feel as if now that most people have a little bit of flexibility with their schedule to say, okay, do you want to work remote? Come into the office, let's say 3 days a week. They pick the days they come in, they'll look at the weather. If it's going to be beautiful out, they'll come in. If it's not, they'll probably stay home. So today, you know, very good news for the city because it was absolutely packed today. Esmeralda, what's going on? This is Hey Tom. Excuse me. This is Hey Tom and Friends. How's it going? It's going really good. It's been a long day, but it's been a good day. It's been a good day. Apologies for being late. As I was telling everybody else, I went to a really good charity event. It was like an auction. They were auctioning off art pieces, you know, really rare wines and things like that. And all the proceeds were going to go to this charity called the Promise Project, which essentially raises money for families who don't have money to, you know, test their children for learning disabilities like dyslexia, ADD, ADHD. And I didn't know this. Apparently, a lot of those tests can be very expensive, like $6,000 to $10,000. So, you know, if anybody's had a kid and they're in high school or elementary school or middle school, and sorry, I still have this like lingering thing. You know, maybe it's difficult for them to concentrate. Maybe it's difficult for them to read and things like that. The funds will go to those families so they can get the kid tested, and maybe they have dyslexia. Maybe they need a little bit more one-on-one time with the teacher. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that luxury. So, I mean, I remember when I was in really even now, you know, but specifically elementary school, middle school, and high school, like I would read a full chapter of a book and I'd be like, what the hell did I just read? I couldn't remember anything, right? Mixing up words and letters, and that's, if anybody's, you know, lived with dyslexia, that's kind of how it's like. But over time it gets better. You kind of train yourself to get better, but it's definitely much more ideal scenario to have a professional to help you with that. So anyway, that's why I was late. It was a great time. There was a lot of notable people there. Yeah, it should be, if you want to see a little bit more about it, it should be on News 7 tonight at 11. But markets perform rather well. However, many of the major indices closed mid-range. So if you look at a chart of the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ or the Dow, and if you look at the daily bar, well off the highs, pretty much across the board, even in the majority of individual stocks too. So we'll see. We'll see what tomorrow brings. It was a rather light volume day. And next week, we have CPI. Jack CW says, can Starbucks turn it around? It's a good question. I'm going to say yes and no. And I know that's a really terrible answer. That really doesn't help much. But I'll explain it like this. I'm totally convinced 100%, right? Out of all the years that I've been, covering that stock, Starbucks, the only person who can run that company is Howard Schultz. The only person who has ever had any success running that company is Howard Schultz. Not Kevin Johnson, not nobody. Now, for those of you who don't know, Kevin Johnson was the prior CEO, and he doesn't really have any food beverage experience. But that's okay, because he did do some good for the company, particularly around the mobile order and pay. Now, if you look back at Kevin Johnson's resume, he was actually a big executive at Microsoft, I believe. So he's a very smart guy. He's a very sharp guy. But if you look at the performance in the stock under every other CEO, besides the one and only Howard Schultz, it doesn't work out too good. I'm not sure if anybody saw the post on LinkedIn, but Howard Schultz actually took it upon himself to write, it was like a 3-4 paragraph post on LinkedIn talking about how disappointed he is with the most recent quarterly earnings report and how there needs to be, to use his term, a complete overhaul of the company, right? To use Howard Schultz, essentially to use his words. And I think I agree. But I also truly believe that nobody on this earth, these are really cool. This is Alec Monopoly. He has a lot of artwork in Wynwood, Miami. So like right near the Wynwood walls, very similar pieces. But the last thing I'll say is this. There's nobody that's going to care, work hard, and really treat it 24/7, 365 as your life than the founder of a company. Right? Founders are just different because you kind of have that personal attachment like it's your child almost, right? And Elon Musk, kind of has said this in multiple interviews talking about his companies. And when he was starting Tesla, he was put in a position where he had a little bit of money left, right? He was down to his last, investments to where he could either split it between the two companies, and there's a high likelihood that they both may die, those two companies, or he could give all the money to one company and then the other company would 100% die, or give all the money to Tesla and then the other company would 100% die. Turns out he took the money, he split it between the two of them, and thankfully they both survived. But it's different, and this is coming from like an opinionated statement. I'm not a founder, right? I haven't built one of these massive companies. But I could only imagine if I did, I would probably be the person who's caring about it the most. Not to say the other CEOs don't, but in terms of you have to have that it factor. And I think a company like Starbucks, kind of the way it was created, if you ever read any of Howard Schultz's books, there was so much passion behind his idea, right, to create the quote-unquote third place. People have home, people have the office, and then people have what Howard Schultz described in his book as that third place. And I think over the years, Howard really solidified that as a true saying, right, the third place. But I don't know, it seems as if maybe there's just total saturation, or customer service is lacking. I would say that's probably a big reason. Also, unfortunately, in major cities, many of these Starbucks locations have turned into, let's just be honest, homeless encampments pretty much, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So much so to where a lot of these Starbucks stores are wanting to unionize because of these safety concerns, right? In some of these major cities, you have, heroin addicts shooting up in the bathrooms, and then the Starbucks employees have to go in there and deal with that, which is not their job, by the way, right? I do agree that, if you work at one of these places, your job is to, clean the bathrooms, do all that stuff within reason, but the job is not to interact with, very dangerous narcotics and other drugs. That is not your job. So in major cities such as New York, San Francisco, the word has kind of gotten out that some of these places are like homeless encampments, and that probably pushes a lot of people away. Not probably, it's showing up in the earnings results. So I don't know. That's kind of my diatribe about Starbucks. Anybody have an opinion, a differing point of view? Am I missing something? I still think it's a great company, right? I'm still a customer, but I feel as if since Howard Schultz has been wanting to pass the baton to somebody else, this has been going on, how many years now? Probably almost 10. It just doesn't seem like anybody else can be trusted with the company. At least that's what it seems like to me. All right, guys, here we are at Rockefeller Center. Patricia Ivory's is most of the Starbucks now. They renovate, do not have restrooms. Maj says if I'm going to work and drink $10 coffees, I'd like a decent bathroom to go to. Fair. Ahmad Lopez says, what's your take on mob stealing in stores and internet shopping? I'll get back to that. I don't quite understand it. Hey, Tom Smith, good to see you. Carl Roth says, Tom, Starbucks needs to through the entire coffee industry and cut their prices by 60%. Then put a lock on the washroom doors. Hold on one second. All right, sorry about that. No, but so I definitely agree. I'm kind of scanning through a lot of the comments, and look, I echo a lot of those concerns, right? Also, whoever wrote the comment, it probably was Carl Roth, about the price increases, right? I think Starbucks went too far. Now, again, this is what I'll say. It's been proven, right, because we've been talking about earnings reports like LVMH, right, Bernardo and O's company. They hike prices like crazy, and it doesn't have any material impact on sales. And that's high luxury. I do believe that translates to some of these food items as well, but what do we talk about? The experience. So you have an interesting divergence there, which people are noticing. I think it was Mach E that said, look, if I'm going to spend $10 in the morning on coffee, I want a good experience. I want to be able to go in there, have a nice bathroom, everything be clean, the employees be happy, and things like that. So you have a little bit of degradation in the service while you have prices going in the opposite direction. Generally speaking, and data shows this, people are willing to spend the money, right? People are willing to spend more money so long as they are getting the service that they want. Generally, right? I truly believe that. So is this fixable? I think so. But they're going to need to do a lot. They're going to need to do a lot, because the problem is a company, I believe, starts with leadership and then it's the employees. If the employees aren't happy, if the employees are disgruntled, right? Which by definition, they are. We know this with all the unionization efforts, and maybe they have a point, right? Who wants to go, work at a Starbucks and you also have to be like mental health police? That is not their job, okay? That should be state and local government's job to police these people. So it's created a kind of a toxic environment at some of these places, and I get it. I totally get it. So who knows? Maybe we'll see Howard Schultz back. I doubt it, but he seems pretty fired up. Check out the LinkedIn post if you're curious as to what we're talking about in terms of the direct context. Go to LinkedIn, type in Howard Schultz, and read his letter to investors, essentially. That limo has similar doors to the Tesla Model X. You guys see this? The Model X has similar doors. It's kind of like opens like a gull wing door. Solo 401 says, well, customers suck these days. Low pay to deal with the entitled people. Nick Nagler says, Starbucks suffers from the same as all service providers. Can't find good employees for low wages. Is the times we live in? Perhaps. However, one of the things, right, and I definitely agree with that. However, Starbucks is better than most, okay? If you're gonna play a comparison game, I'm not trying to be a Starbucks apologist. I'm just trying to throw out both sides of the context here. So if you look at the benefit package, and this is written in I've read every single Howard Schultz book there is, but the employees have employee stock purchase program, they have health care, and they have tuition reimbursement. So if you are a Starbucks employee, you can go to college, you can get educated, and it's on the company's dime. Now, is that to say they couldn't be doing any better? No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is they do a lot better than most QSR restaurants and food service businesses. If you came to me and said, okay, you had to take a choice to work at Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's, or Starbucks, I'd work at Starbucks 100%, right? The career mobility, and you get health care, and you can go to college and get an education, all on the company's dime. I think that's pretty good. Again, just kind of making that comparison. All right, everybody. Beautiful shot of Radio City Music Hall. Carl Ross is Tom. Independent coffee shops are smaller but offer better coffee. Mach East is way better than Dunkin'. Yeah, Dunkin' Donuts used to be publicly traded under the ticker symbol DNKN. They're private now. Dario says, what about Arabica? Funny you mention that. Arabica is right here. Literally right here. That's the coffee shop. Their famous one is in Dumbo, Brooklyn. That's probably the one you're referring to, Dario, but they just opened up a satellite location right here. It's actually pretty good. Yeah, George, we are going to the Madison Square Garden for the Rangers game. Now, last night was crazy. So the stream crashed last night after the Knicks beat the Pacers, unfortunately. But there were so many people outside of Madison Square Garden after the game. It was crazy. And again, I don't really follow basketball, but here's my thought process, right? If the Knicks won last, or assuming obviously, quite obviously, the Knicks won last night, and it was crazy outside of Madison Square Garden. Could you imagine what the city's going to be like if the Knicks are in the finals? The city is going to be wild, and I'm excited for it. So fingers crossed Hopefully the Knicks and the Rangers will continue their winning streak. Let's just say that. Who knows? So we talked a lot about the things in Starbucks' control that they can change. But what about the variables that are not in their control, right? What would be some of the variables that are not within Starbucks' control? They can control how they run their stores. They can control management. They can control, employee experience. They can control customer experience. But what they can't control is the competition. And there is a lot of competition. There's another stock. How can I blank on the name? It's called Brothers Coffee. It's publicly traded under the ticker symbol BROS, Bros. I think the company is actually called Dutch Brothers. That is increased competition. And if you're in a major city, you have huge competition from the local and privately owned mom and pop coffee shops. So you have Dutch Brothers that are growing pretty significantly and pretty rapidly. You have the likes of Dunkin' Donuts, and then you have all of these independent chains that I would say are eating into the market share for Starbucks. So there's also competition, right? That's why it's so important to identify these trends early. And we've talked about this multiple times. And you can use this in any industry. We're just talking about the restaurant business and quick service restaurants. But ideally what you want to do, and we'll cross the street since we have the light, you want to take a mature company, a perfect example would be Starbucks, then you want to work backwards. Treat it like a case study, right? Treat it like you're in an MBA class in college and you're doing a case study on the company, how it's grown. So if you go back to the inception of Starbucks, you can pull historical data and see what the CAGR was, right? What is the average compounded annualized growth rate at Starbucks? Then you can find a smaller company, right? Maybe you just went public, right? Maybe it's a new IPO. And you could say, okay, I see some similarities here between Starbucks and XYZ company. You can compare the historical growth rate of Starbucks to the current growth rate of the target company. And then you can put a projection on that, right? So assuming all things are the same, it should, with variance, right, track the growth trajectory of your model company. And this is what I'm trying to do with a company called Kava. I'm essentially modeling it to Chipotle. Right? So Chipotle, and we've talked about this multiple times, but Chipotle has the scale, it has the loyal customer base, and it has the margins. Similarly, right, and it's still very, very early, a QSR company that's trying to do the same thing as Chipotle, but with Mediterranean food, okay, how many stores are they going to grow a year compared to when Chipotle was in the same exact stage of its company growth? How many stores did they grow a year? What was its revenues when they had X amount of stores? Right? What is each individual store's gross margin? So these are all things we could do. Another example, and then we'll kind of move on from the topic, would be Monster Beverage, right? Monster Beverage, or Monster, the corporation, is one of the best performing companies or stocks of all time. And you can take a target company, which would be Celsius, which is a Boca Raton, Florida-based energy drink company, and that is growing at a very, very similar pace as to what Monster grew when it was at the same stage in its life cycle. Daniel says Cabo will never take off. It's not working class food. Maybe it won't. Maybe you're right. But so far, the sales and the earnings and the target for growth, 15% store growth, it's very, very similar to that of Chipotle, and the margins are pretty good. So we'll see, but maybe you're right. Another great performer has been Wingstop. Very scalable business, simple menu, right? Ticker symbol WING. Great business. Solo 401 says Monster is great at marketing. Now, here's another company I'm watching very closely. It's not publicly traded, but it's called Liquid Death. So just keep that in mind. Liquid Death, I think if they ever choose to come public, that's going to be an interesting business to watch. Peters says wait until synthetic coffee starts to be marketed. The rainforests are being cut. Yeah, you sent me that article. I just didn't have time to look at it, but I will check out synthetic coffee. Seems to be interesting, right? New England Cryptos is my 8-year-old daughter just asked me if we can go to Kava soon. They just opened one pretty close to me. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, let me know how you like it. I went, I thought it was decent. I think I rated it a 7.8 or 7.9, something like that. However, I will say this. Chipotle is one of those quick service restaurants you could probably have for lunch every day and not really get sick of it. You know, it's Mexican food. You get a steak bowl, you get a burrito bowl, you know, you eat it. I don't know if I could eat Kava every day. I think it was Daniel that put that in the chat. It's not like, maybe you have to have an acquired taste to it. I don't know, but revenue is pretty good. Revenue growth is good. Jack CW says cocoa futures prices are up crazy. I think they're actually, I think they've blown off now. I think they're going to continue to be down big. But in general, commodities have been the place to be. Check out the spire of One Vanderbilt here. Anyway, if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. Now, I guess I'll ask the audience, I'll ask you guys, because this is all important, right? Essentially, investing is all about generating ideas, right? How good are you at idea generation and catching trends? So we have, I can't see how many people are in the chat for some reason, because the Prism live stream is just a terrible piece of software. But out of the hundreds of people that are watching this right now, if you could think, right, and let's kind of do this analysis together. Let's pretend like we're in a lecture hall. What do you think is an interesting trend that is in its infancy that you can see really, really catching on here? And it could be anything. It doesn't have to be food. We've just been talking about food a lot tonight because we've been talking about Starbucks and their horrible earnings report. But over the next 5 years, let's look at 5 to 10 years, what do you think is going to be an interesting theme for investment? What do you guys think? Hey, Sarah, thank you so much for enjoying the streams. I appreciate your support. Thank you so much. But any interesting theme that we think we should be watching? Main Street Moments says, Tom, I think bookstores are going to make a comeback. Glass of Beer 12 says Bitcoin. Paul McNeely says, I don't think Mediterranean has the appeal like Mexican restaurants. I think I agree. I think the total addressable market's way bigger in Mexican food. Main Street Moments says Book Talk is huge now. Sharon says matcha competing with coffee. That's an interesting one. Matthew M says VR and online gaming, also cybersecurity. T-Cal says, can you invest in sports teams? Yeah, I actually had a friend who bought an online video game team. I didn't even know those existed, but apparently they do. Tyler says podcasts. Photos around New York says anything AI. Troy Atman, I like that one. It says weight loss medicine. That's a very, very good thematic. Cooking Bros is education tech. Dude, fantastic one, Cooking Bro. Yeah, you have that drug Ozempic, right? Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't have any experience in medical at all. So whatever I'm about to say, pretty much just completely, this is just opinionated. I don't know how safe that's going to be over the long term from some of the articles that I've been reading. But again, not a doctor. Consult with your doctor. But some of the articles that have been coming out has been saying these weight loss drugs, similar to Ozempic, yeah, they help you lose weight, but they also deteriorate your muscle content. Now, I don't know if that's true. Okay, just because you read a few articles doesn't mean it's true. But that's a little concerning because let's say, for example, assuming this is true, and it may not, but let's assume for a second that it's true. And let's assume that you take these weight loss medications like Ozempic, okay? And let's say you lose 100 pounds. That's fantastic. However, once you stop taking that medicine, you're gonna gain all the weight back, but you won't gain the muscle back that you lost. So that could be like a double whammy, and that could be like very, very negative. So when you lose all the weight, you're also gonna lose some muscle, and then when you stop taking it, you're gonna gain all the weight back, but you're not gonna gain any of the muscle back. That is a concern I see, assuming that that's true. Again, we don't know if that's true or not.
So you take the other one? Yeah.
I just got to plug in my phone for a second, sorry. Wow, Bryant Park looks beautiful tonight. But let's talk about education tech, because I think that is a fantastic one. Anybody here use the, anybody here have ever used the company or the application Duolingo? Anybody heard of it? Well, that's a publicly traded company, and I'm very interested in it. All right, give me one sec. Next, this is Tom. Would you invest into one of the new robotics companies? Yeah, I think a good play for that is just to buy Tesla. That's not a recommendation, but if you want to get, all right, let me hold that thought. Let me just plug in my phone. All right, we're good. So Duolingo, I believe, trades under... So somebody's talking about robotics. Yeah, I believe if you want to get exposure to robots, I think you could just get exposure through Tesla. Because Tesla, not only do you have the autonomous driving play, but Elon Musk is also building, what is the Tesla robot called? Optimus? That guy has a bunny ear hat on, this guy. Main Street Moments is, I think, more and more parents are going to homeschool, so education apps are good. That is a trend that has been happening. I think that'll also continue. In addition, it seems like every single kid now has iPhones, iPads. So where are they going to be doing their learning? Are they going to be doing their learning on pen and paper? No, they're going to be doing their learning on their iPhones, iPads, and tablets. And Duolingo, right? Could you imagine how amazing that would be if your kids were interested in learning another language like Korean or Italian or Spanish or you know, insert language here, and they, instead of just sitting on these tablets playing games, they could be learning, but in disguise you're playing a game, but it's an educational kind of game. We already know that the TAM of that is massive with the Learning Company. Remember Reader Rabbit? Who's here is old enough to remember, you know, playing those PC computer games like Reader Rabbit? I used to play those as a kid. This is a beautiful shot of the Empire State Building. Victor says, Tom, have you played robotic chess? I don't think I have. Or what do you mean, like played chess on my phone? It's an awesome shot here. Hey, NBA Elias, what's going on? Thanks for joining us. Just having a little bit of a stroll through Bryant Park. All right, so potential new, for those of you who are just joining, we're trying to work together to brainstorm some new emerging trends that could potentially be, you know, really take off. And many people are saying, you know, all the stuff that everybody already knows, like AI and all that. But I think education tech is very good. Very interesting. Somebody said weight loss medications. I mean, in the United States, what is the total addressable market of that? It's massive. No pun intended. But it's huge TAM. One of the things I was also thinking about is the adoption cycles continue to be shorter and shorter, right? However, the technology acceleration cycles continue to grow faster and faster. I think the best example of this, as we're walking through Bryant Park here, is the potential competition between a lot of these VR, virtual reality, and augmented reality headsets like Apple Vision Pro and Meta's Quest headset. Like, those are all great products. However, technology is evolving at such a rapid pace that it's quite possible that they're obsolete the moment that they reach peak performance, if you will. The best example of this that I give is with Neuralink. If you can just become one with the interface and implant the chip in your brain, well then why do you need a headset, right? If this Neuralink thing really takes off and you could just implant the chip in your head and you download the internet and all of its contents to your brain, well then you don't need the third-party device for the interface. Does that make sense? So that's kind of what's really interesting about these, you know, catching trends, because it seems like once there's a new trend, there's a new technology that's going to come in and disrupt it, which is interesting. Doc 7 says, we just saw Tom on the Bryant Park stream. How we looking? We doing good? Someone says, I read today that 1 in 24 New Yorkers are millionaires. Interesting stat. Someone says, are you really going back to MSG tonight? We are really going back to MSG tonight. Interesting stuff. Interesting conversation. You know, that statistic is pretty interesting, and that's another reason why I think living in New York City is worth it, particularly when you're young. Victor, because I heard that they want to make the stock market open 24/7. I heard that too. I think they're voting on it. I'm not too sure how I feel about that. I'll say this. It's probably inevitable, right? But I'm not sure if it's going to be a net positive for society. Like, do we really need, you know, to be trading 24/7, 365? I don't think so. I think people need some time off. I don't know. But that's where technology is headed. But what most people don't realize is the biggest moves in the stock market happen when the market's not open. And one of the main reasons for that is because of the market is very, very thin, right? Very, very thin market. And what a thin market means is that there's no liquidity. So trading after hours, you can trade after hours, but there's almost virtually no liquidity. That's why oftentimes, you know, you'll see, hey, you know, Google just reported earnings, the stock's up 10% after hours, right? Therefore, and which we always get into, if you're just buying and selling stocks throughout the day, it's very, very hard to make any money. It's very, very difficult to make money because, number one, the intraday volatility of the S&P 500 has contracted materially since algorithmic trading took place, really since the start of computers. So if you're not sitting and holding these companies through earnings, you're just going to churn your account. So will 24 hours a day trading change that? These big after hours moves? I don't know. I mean, who thinks that by opening the stock market 24/7, that's a good idea? Let's just start with that. In the chat, who thinks that 24/7, 365 trading will be a net positive for society? I'm interested to see the answers. Because I don't know. I don't have the answers. Doc says no. Dario says not for me. JC says Bitcoin remains the fastest horse in the race. I agree. Sarah says nope. Joe says bad. Harry says no. Eugene says bad idea. Joseph says, you think it's a good idea? Yeah, I don't know. It's this guy's going the wrong way in the bike lane. Anyway, I feel like there's a few things at play, right? People sitting at their computers, and maybe if you work on the street, and if you're trading 24/7, I don't think that's good for anybody. I think that'll actually lead to more people losing money in the market. But I think there's also other reasons why it's not a good idea too. Now, if anybody's here's ever worked in investment banking, right? Essentially, you know, either in M&A or helping companies go public or helping other companies buying other companies, the hours are very, very grueling, and it's not uncommon, right? If you're working on a deal and you're trying to win a deal, that you could put in, you know, 80 to 100 hours a week. And there was a really tragic story which was brought to my attention from one of my friends who works at Bank of America as an investment banker. There was a managing director that was working on a big deal. He was working about 120 hours a week. He wasn't sleeping. He was very stressed out. He was drinking all these energy drinks. I think he was in his mid to late 30s. And he just died last week from overwork. So there has been a really big call to revise the working culture and the structure on Wall Street, particularly if you're in IB, investment banking. Oftentimes, you are pulling 80 hours a week. Sometimes if you're working a live deal, that 80 hours could turn into 120 hours. And I don't think that's healthy or good for anybody, right? Yeah, these deals could, mean, $100 million plus in fees for the bank, so it's very competitive to work. But it's like, it's not worth deteriorating your health and dying over. So the question is, will having the market, let's say if you're a trader on equities desk, open 24 hours a day, are you going to start to see the sales and trading departments work crazy hours? Because the stereotype, not the stereotype, but the stigma on Wall Street is that investment bankers are in IB, you work more hours than the sales traders, right? If you're in S&T or sales and trading, you actually don't, you pretty much have a pretty normal life, right? You work long hours, but you don't work investment banking hours, right? Or IB hours. So I'm not too sure that's really good. I mean, do I sound off base here or what? All right, everybody, 34th Street, Herald Square. If you guys are enjoying tonight's commentary, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams every single night, starting at 8:30. Also, this Thursday, just a quick reminder, we will be sending out our free investing newsletter called Behind the Street. If you want to sign up to our Substack for free to read all of our equity research, just type !news, NEWS in the chat, and the Nightbot will drop the link to the Substack. Cape Cod Sarah says, I think when you get out of your 20s, you'll appreciate work-life balance. Yeah. This is a pretty cool view looking all the way down to the World Trade Center. You can see the spire. Doc 7 says, I worked many 80-hour weeks. Wasn't worth it. I think you need to find the balance. But for me, you should maximize your productivity and your ability to work crazy hours when you're young. 120 hours a week, sleep for 4 hours, take a nap, pop right back up, go to work. I can't do that now, right? And it's not like I'm super old, I'm 28, but if I don't get 8 hours of sleep, I'm gonna get sick, like I get a cold. So your body deteriorates over time, just normally. So I would say if you can just push it, sacrifice everything you got and just work the crazy hours when you're young and just stock all the money away and invest it, by the time you're 28, 29, 30, you're going to be feeling pretty well. But the problem is a lot of people do the opposite. When they're young, they want to go out partying, which is fine. But oftentimes that leads them to have to work harder and do the grueling hours, in their 30s and 40s. which I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but if you can kind of try to just say, look, I have the energy when in my 20s to work all these crazy hours. I'm gonna freaking go to war with this, you know, make the money in my 20s, spend none of it, sock it away. You know, over a 10-12 year period, if you compound out your money, even at 5 to 6% on the low end, that's a lot of money in 10-20 years, right? But I do agree you need a balance. You know, I think 125-hour weeks, which allegedly this gentleman was working before he unfortunately passed away, you know, there should have been some red flags that the department should have seen, which is, you know, MBA Elias. I don't know many MDs, how many MDs survive working 80 to 100 hours a week at the hospital. Oh man, yeah. I mean, I have so much respect for doctors, man. Now, I had a bit of a health scare a while back. I was in the hospital, which ironically enough, now that we're on this topic of working, you know, 80, 90-hour weeks, that's why I had found myself in the hospital, because I was working so much and I wasn't getting any sleep that I've depleted my entire immune system, and I developed something called leukopenia, which is essentially when you have no more, I think it's white blood cells, to be able to fight infections. So I essentially had to take a mini sabbatical, like 6 months to a year. I couldn't work. I was so like shot. I was just shot. And I remember I had to go see this special doctor, a hematologist. He was a nice guy on the North Shore of Long Island. And this guy was a saint, because most of his patients, I was about to say clients, most of his patients were dying of leukemia and these terrible, terrible, you know, blood cancers. And every time I went to see the guy, he was such a nice guy, but he looked, you know what, when you look at somebody and you could just tell that they've been through a lot. Like, this guy just looked depleted, like, because I mean, imagine how many patients he's seen throughout the years that are just suffering and dying of these terrible blood cancers, and he's working these crazy hours. I never forget that guy. So I agree with what MBA Elias is saying. I mean, some of these doctors, not only do they work the crazy hours, right, but they're working the crazy hours and they're surrounded by not happy things, right? They're surrounded by sick and dying people all the time. You know, the investment bankers, yeah, they work the 80, 90 hours a week, but if you're a managing director, maybe you make $1 million, $2 million, it's your bonus at the end of the year. You know, and it's a celebration. You know, doctors, they see some wild stuff. So it's a really interesting perspective that you brought that up. That's really interesting. And I agree, I don't know how they do it. I think you have to be a special type of person to be able to put up with it. All right, everybody, this is Koreatown. Whoa, there's 3 helicopters in the sky. I wonder what's going on. Hey, Lee says doctor is one of the few professions that, if you can believe in, private practice, corporation, or the government. Brolic camps, I make about 1 to 2K now, and I'm trying to get into tech. That's awesome, dude. Keep hammering on it. You'll do it. Oh, Daniel says FIT. Oh yeah, you're right. FIT is 4 blocks down. It's protests, I'm assuming. Again, well, we'll check out the Rangers then. Now, anybody have an update on the Rangers? Last time we checked, they were tied 3-3. was the max number of hours I was working in a day. I was probably working the 100, but the problem is I was young and I was really stupid, and I didn't know how to manage my time properly. Right, which as you mature and as you get older, you kind of learn how to, you know, delegate things, manage things, but it's just I wasn't sleeping. I would not prioritize sleep. And as I've grown older and gotten wiser, hopefully, sleep is so important, because if I go back and audit that time period, yeah, was I making a lot of money for my age? Yeah, I was crushing it, but it was almost a period of diminishing returns, because there were times that I would mess up deals. There were times where I could just tell I was working the hours, but I wasn't working the hours, if that makes sense. If you're not mentally sharp and mentally alive and fit, the hours you work are wasted because you're not performing well, right? You're all discombobulated. So it's not necessarily what I've realized, right? And you know, when you're 23, sometimes you have to learn those lessons by doing it. It's not necessarily about the amount of hours you work, it's how much work you get done within those hours, right? And really auditing your time, you know, outsourcing a lot of things, saying no to a lot of business, right? I think as you get older, if you're in a sales role, oftentimes you have to say no to a lot of business. So you can focus on the big deals. Because if you say yes to all the business, you're gonna be running around like crazy and you're not gonna be servicing your customers to the best of your ability. But if you focus on your top 10, you know, mega deals, and you give them all your time and attention, there's a higher probability of those closing than if you're trying to juggle, you know, 80 deals and then you give everybody poor service. On the flip side, and this, you know, this doesn't mean, everything I'm saying doesn't mean it's true. This is just from my experience. Maybe you guys have a better way of doing it. I'm probably sure you do. I'm probably pretty sure you do. But that's kind of what I learned. And when you're young, you have to say yes to everything to get your foot in the door. But as you build your business, you slowly start to say no to more things and prioritize. So when you're young, you know, you're fresh blood, you're fresh meat, say yes to everything and absolutely, you know, go crazy to build your business, to build that book, and then prioritize the top deals and the top clients. All right, let's check out these New York Rangers. I'm seeing some Rangers fans coming out of Madison Square Garden. Wow, it's still 3-3 overtime? I felt like it was 3-3 overtime an hour ago. Yeah, right? I feel like they were tied 3-3 an hour ago. I felt like I asked you guys that. Cash only says if you're about to take the LSAT or the MCAT, make sure you read everything at hand reach. Well, I'm not smart enough for any of that, so that's totally out of my wheelhouse. Yeah, I'm definitely not an MCAT or an LSAT type of guy. That I am not that smart to be able to do any of that. Triathlon's the second overtime just started. How long is an overtime in hockey? It goes by periods, right? 15-minute overtimes or something? We'll check it out. We'll still go to MSG. We'll probably see a lot of fans waiting outside. Maybe we could watch some of the game. Oops. I could hear the noise from the fans. Wow, DC 322 20-minute overtime. That's a lot. In terms of fitness, right? In terms of physical fitness, I think hockey is probably the most demanding. Would you all agree? Because it's essentially action so often, right? You're skating, you're pivoting, you're checking each other into the boards. It's very physical, and you're flying while you're doing it. You're flying 10, 15 miles an hour on ice, however fast they go. Football, yeah, it's very physically demanding, but you get a lot of breaks. Hockey, it feels like there's no breaks. Same thing with soccer. The only thing with soccer, it's not as physical. It is physical, it's just not as violently physical as hockey, not even close. So I would say it's probably hockey players are the most fit in terms of overall well-roundedness. And then I'd probably say soccer players. Oh, T-Cows is water polo, that too. You probably do burn more calories in water polo. By the books is basketball is number one. Maybe. Matthew enters rugby. Yeah, maybe I'll revise that. Rugby is probably number one. It's hockey, rugby, and soccer, probably the top three.
They were distracting.
Now, last night I was here for the New York Knicks, and wow, that was the craziest sports celebration I've ever seen in person. The only other crazy one that I've seen was when Argentina won the World Cup. That was the craziest, but last night was probably number two, or tied for number one. Let's go around here so we can see people getting out of the stadium. This is the main entrance, or I should say the new entrance to Madison Square Garden. Houses don't shut it off. The stream crashed. There was so many people at once that it congested the network to the point where they just crashed on us. Nothing I could do. All right, I'll take you guys to the main entrance so we can see everybody coming out in due time. I feel as if many people just bailed on the game because it's getting so late. It's probably almost midnight because we started at 10 p.m. because I was late getting on the stream. Wow, this is actually brand new. I'm not sure if you guys remember. This was all under the construction barricades. So this is all open to the public now. So it's pretty much 100% done. What do you guys think? This is a brand new plaza outside Penn Station. This is like a wind tunnel though. This is like a steady 15-mile-an-hour wind gust coming at us. NBA Elias. People that live on Long Island probably leaving the game. Also New Jersey too. You know, New Jersey Transit is in the same-ish corridor as Long Island Railroad. Brawling cabs. This is after the stream. I will officially go crazy in the best way possible. Do it, man. You won't regret it. All right, let me check the battery. All right. Gary Carpenter's Batman. Batman's actually really fun. Very, very fun. Shadows. Do I just stream from my iPhone camera? Yeah, it's an iPhone 13 mini, which is pretty good. The camera on this is, you know, the difference between the iPhone 15 and the 13, very, very similar. So I just don't see a need to upgrade yet. I think the quality is pretty clear. I think my next upgrade is going to be when we have 4K streaming capabilities, but the battery's probably going to last 10 minutes, quite literally. If we ever have the technology to broadcast in 4K, I'll probably need like 12 battery packs. But in due time, maybe it'll be the status quo. All right, so this is, I should say, the main entrance to the Amtrak. I'll take you around to where all of the players come out. '24 playoffs, round 2, game 2. I feel like they should broadcast the game on the outside of Madison Square Garden, right? For the New Yorkers to watch as they're waiting for the train, instead of just running all the advertisements. Oops, Troy Aikman, Rangers on a power play. Fingers crossed. In hockey, once you're in overtime, it's if you score, you win, right? That's it. Sudden death, as they call it, or something. Uh, 31st Street. These don't seem like hockey fans to me. So coming up to your left, this is where all the players enter Madison Square Garden. Wow, Rangers win. Nice. I think this summer is going to get crazy. I think my prediction that the 2024 summer in New York City is going to be the craziest that it's ever been. I think this is going to help my prediction come true. I think you're going to see the Knicks crush, and now the Rangers. This could be my best prediction yet. We'll see. Don't want to jinx it, but oh, look, you can see everybody coming out. You guys see all the fans emptying out now? You're gonna see them really tidal wave down. Alright, we're probably going to buffer, but let's go all the way around to where we were for the Knicks game. See what we got.
The guy next to us started talking to me.
See if the internet holds up here. Got a little bit of a puddle here. Let's cross the street. I don't want to be corralled in on the other side. Seem like too much action. I think the Knicks fans are a little bit crazier. Look at the size of that roach. How many people you think attended this game? I'd say what, over 15,000, you think? Wow, look at the traffic coming out of here. It's all the way backed up here. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, it looks like about 18,000 people coming out of here, right? Once this crowd goes, we'll go in, and I think the majority of people should be out of here. At least we hope. Out and about. It's another wave. I think we'll have to wait until this crowd moves out, and then we'll try to get back in. But for now, I think we're stuck here. Yeah, this is Tom. Come back tomorrow. Hopefully, the next win. We'll be back. I mean, we usually end the stream here anyway. So. NBA Live. I'll celebrate like this when the Fed lowers interest rates. Same. Man, crazy amount of traffic. Now with an average ticket price of what, $220? You can see the average Rangers ticket's $220. I mean, they probably really rake it in here. stand corrected. Looks like we have one more. One more crowd. And then we can finally get in. Yikes. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed the stream. It was kind of a cool way to end it. Man, even more fans now. Last crowd coming through. Wide lens will kind of give a little bit better glimpse of the new N 2 project. Got some of the opposing team fans here. Disturbed, very good tunes, very good tunes. Another band that I think you'd like is Repeat Process. Is Repeat Process by 100 Demons. Really good tunes. I'm not sure if anybody's into metal, but check out Repeat Process by 100 Demons. Really, really great tune. All right, let's try to make a run for it here. I think we've let enough fans out for the night. Let's go up the stairs.